We've got a continent devoted to growing corn and growing soybeans and growing just a handful of commodities that the federal government subsidizes. It's almost taken for granted, and we never really discuss how exactly the hell did we get here.
To free ourselves, we have to feed ourselves. We determine what food security is.
We have to look at like what it actually costs to grow food. We have to be related to that equation. We can't have cheap food and have justice. We can't have cheap food and have Black Lives Matter all over the world.
The concept of land ownership is fundamentally a European concept. As we're looking at developing societies that are a reflection of our highest values, this idea of individual ownership of land is something that we really need to get rid of.
In running businesses, my first question always is, are they Black? It's so important for me to honor every step of a Black food system.
When you ignore indigenous land stewardship ethics, you have a catastrophe. This ain't just about being fair to Black people or being fair to Indians. This is about, if you pick the wrong food production system, you're going to destroy the planet. And that's what's happening.
Everything anybody knows about agriculture has already been done, and they learned from indigenous communities. The only thing that's going to save us is that which sustained us in the past. Okay, and that's that. We just have to come back to that, because the cultures that we try to erase are the cultures that have the answers.
It's time to be hungry, but more than just for physical food. It's time to have a hunger for justice. Be a part of this growing culture with us. In the Gullah Geechee Nation, we be Black history. At the Queen Quet, head pun the body of the Gullah Geechee Nation. What did right ya from Jacksonville, North Kakalaki to Jacksonville, Florida. Same place he had a boat called the 40 Acres and a Mule. The Sherman, and it's forced to get us your line that we. Instead, as I sit neath these grasses in the sea, I study what these shoreline where my ancestors navigated. We had to hold on the line. They had to take a stand. Or casting out the net for drawing the next generation. For march and live this just story. What tell the truth, but they legacy. From motherland to righteous in this Gullah Geechee side. We be the shout. We the pay homage. All them will come for we. All learn the chiller. Oh, how we do. What we do. But man, who we be. Oh yes. This year, the living story of Black history. Or shouting like we ancestors. They opening the door for the lead. Yet it the truth. But all what we done do all around the world, from American to Barbados to Bakia to the Gullah Geechee show, where the elders let we know all that you know. Seminole be we family too. Oh yeah, he can't wait to go on. We know what we have to do. That we have to stand true for who we be and pass on this your Black history legacy. So you bring the circle together as it broaden for drawing all 100 children with we will celebrate 365 and 366. This your line where we cast on the sea, that you know we standing like the Gullah Geechee Fishing Association for all this year, for feed me and for feed Hunter, cause you see we be Black history, cause we victoriously Gullah Geechee. And we still dare ya, the Benya, ain't gwine nowhere tall, cause God done smile upon we live this ya Black gold story. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over we. And before I be on a slave, I go and be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. And I can't crack your teeth and say, look like me. They have a land in what 100 years about called North America. During this your time, every year. And now study that. Even when Hunter sing that song, what they like for called the black anthem and things like that. It choked down upon the people right here in the land. Yes, we did. This year they did. We sang up all 100 children of Mother Africa. But join me underneath this your tree. But yet about freedom. Celebrate who we be. About living the black story. The living we story. Living who we be. Ain't half of yet didn't think about the cracky. We'll see. Ain't no black history. So how? When I can't see, you have to see who we be. And I see you. I see me. That is the strength and who we be. So you never start up nothing like this show without paying homage to them who come forward. So this your day. Ask on it. The pause a little while and join in this your ceremony as we pour libation for all of Mother Africa children. Why even make classes and things like that? Because it's been a fight for his soul and for the journey. But steady, but know about the land and things like that. We stand. For them this your day we say, Ashe. And pour for all of these children who are there. All throughout the African diaspora. Still got him mind and things like that for freedom. We woke up this morning with the mind state, but going on to the future. We pour and we say, Ashe. For the elders will learn me. But how this your thing? But how the vision? Even while the rest of people would tell them, say, crying for stay who it are and things like that. Then tell them to go and get any power. For hold upon them at this hour. We pour and we say, Ashe. And for all the freedom fighters this hour who are butting and raising the next generation of them will know how to hold upon who he be and hold upon one powerful legacy. Black gold, richness to who he be round the world. We say, Ashe. And this your day where we take a moment of silence and honor the land, Mother Earth. God will bless we for the honor and honor all our ancestors. What on God, he body did it. That was his spirit, his blood, his sweat, and his tears. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. As we sit down here and let the church say, Amen. Thank you to all 100 children who taught them not robbery, but celebrate this year day, a living Black history with we. This year the Queen quit, head upon the body of the Gullah Nation. Underneath this your virtual oak tree with the African family. Oh, my sister Dima, how honor be.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Woo! Welcome, 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 family, peace and great blessings. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for honoring us and joining us in honoring those who come before us, those who join us, those who will come after us. Thank you for coming to affirm that Black history is human history, that Black history is in the making, that Black history is Black present, is Black future, and it's here. It's not one day, it's not one country, it's not one individual. It is everything, because we are everything. Welcome to a growing culture, celebration, and honoring of Black history in the making. Please take a moment to share this video. Take a moment to tell us where you're tuning in from. We are everywhere. The root is in Mother Africa, but them branches went everywhere, like our seeds have gone everywhere. And we are just here to give you a glimpse of the glory that our people are, of the brilliance, of the excellence, of the resilience, of the power. And if your energy is not pumping just by this amazing introduction, stay around, because you're in for a treat. We're getting some knowledge, we're getting some wisdom, and I want to welcome all of you on behalf of A Growing Culture. My name is Dima Mahmoud. I have recently joined this amazing family. I should say rejoined. I should say reconnected, because I am reconnecting with each and every one of the beautiful souls that you see on the screen and that have mentioned and come through earlier in the introduction as well. I'll take a moment to ask them to introduce themselves. And as we are sharing the space with the Africa Week 2020 fam and the For Black Power family as well, we'll give you a shout out. And if you're from one of these families, make some noise in the comments. We see them all. How we do the introduction at Africa Week 2020 is we ask you who you are. We don't do the bios because this isn't a webinar. This isn't a formal affair. This here is a family affair. It's a family reunion. And like Queen Quet said, we're meeting under the virtual family tree. So tell us who you are. Tell us what keeps you up at night and how the greater Black family can help you sleep better, because we're here for it. This is why we're here. So I'm just gonna go in order of who we have on the screen here from what I'm seeing on my side. And I'll ask Chef Farmer Matthew to start us off. Who are you? What keeps you up at night? And how can the family help you sleep better?
Can you hear me? You can hear me? Good. I am the great-great-great-grandson of Jupiter Gilliard, born a slave in 1812. Purchased 9 acres of land in 1874 in Brunswick, Georgia, which I am on farming currently. My sons and my daughters are the 7th generation to have planted, harvested, and eaten from that land. We are located in Brunswick, Georgia. I think the one thing that's been keeping me up at night lately, which has been quite interesting, is Ahmaud Arbery was killed less than 10 minutes from my farm, and that memorial service was this week. And it was really interesting because my boys live in Atlanta and I happen to be up here with them right now. And one of my boys was like, yeah, we're going to go over to the neighborhood over there and talk to some of our friends. And I was like, y'all don't live over there. And they were like, yeah, but we know how to handle ourselves. And I said, no. I know y'all know how to fight. Y'all last name is Rayford. What I want to make sure y'all are able to do is make it out of that neighborhood if you don't know anybody over there. And so one of them said, wait, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, wait, do I need to have this conversation again? And it stuck in my head all of a sudden that this has been an ongoing thing for so long, and that all of a sudden right now we're acting like it's brand new. And I've heard many of people talk about, man, I got to have that talk. And I was like, y'all should be having that talk all the time. And it hit me today that it's not something we can ever stop talking about. And so that's one of the things that's keeping me up at night, because it's 2021, and I did 10 years in the military, and having to still be worried about this stuff back here kind of like throws me off sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And so if there was one thing that kept me up at night, it would be that here currently. And that's because, like many people that are probably on here, you got brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and mamas and daddies and all that kind of good stuff. So that's the one thing that's keeping me up. I don't know. I guess when we get into really, after everybody's did their formal introductions, we can talk about all the things that it's going to take to make it another 200 years on this property. So we'll do that later.
Thank you. Amber?
Hello, beautiful people. Who am I? I am a daughter of two beings that were Black from Brooklyn who loved each other. I am the daughter of Brooklyn, of hip hop, of a new sound, of streets, of struggle, of love, of liberation. I am all the things. I am white, I am indigenous, I am Black, I am that representation of America, which is confusing but consolidated into one word that is Black. That is the best way I could describe myself. What keeps me up is the malnutrition that I am seeing within Black and brown communities throughout cities on the East Coast, particularly from New York City all the way down to Virginia. I think it is truly heartbreaking to see how this government is failing its people in a time where people really need food and they really can't afford it. And so I stay stuck in a loop with my partner of just trying to discuss how to bring higher quality, nutrient dense, nutrient diverse foods to the Black and brown bodies that are desperately in need of it. I think to do this, to strategize around this system is very challenging. And what I need is just more communication with others who align with that and hear that and feel that.
We're here for it. Fam, did you hear that? More communication. Follow. Reach out. Thank you, Amber. Lindsay.
Good morning. Well, good afternoon for depending on your time zone. My name is, it's now Dr. Lindsay Lunsford. I'm a proud recent graduate of the Tuskegee University, which used to be Tuskegee Institute. It's the same place in 1946. My grandparents got married. They met there. My grandfather was a Pullman car porter. That was a really tough profession. They used to call every man George, but his name wasn't George. It was Emmett Lunsford. And he became the first guidance counselor in Indianapolis, Indiana. That was a Black man. My grandmother was a domestic scientist, not a housewife. She was a domestic scientist. She had a degree in domestic science from Tuskegee. They gave birth to 4 children that all went to Tuskegee, and most of their children went to Tuskegee. I'm the 3rd generation, but my youngest cousin, Maya Johnson, who just graduated from Tuskegee last December, she'll actually walk this May. She's the 4th generation. So we've got over 30 degrees from Tuskegee. And it's not to be a capitalist or an elitist to push education, but how many people can tell you that their lineage is education from a Black institution? My grandfather swept Carver's floors for his work study. And he ran alternate for Jesse Owens in the Olympics, because what y'all not gonna talk about Tuskegee, what you not gonna forget is our athleticism. Very physically and intellectually and mentally, just very beautiful and dominant. Besides being an educator, my grandfather was a tailor. He stayed sharp. He could make you a whole suit. That's the people that I come from. I work at Tuskegee. I live in Tuskegee to this day. I swear to God, I never would as a child. I didn't really value having something handed down or having a legacy or what it meant, but gratefully, sometimes time and wisdom grant you things that youth and ignorance weren't willing to lend. So as I grew older, I grew more appreciative of my position and what it meant. And I took my mantle and I took my lineage, and I'm proud to be an extension agent. Resource specialist working in extension at Tuskegee, because we're the birthplace of extension. The first cooperative extension agent to ever work in the United States was an African-American man named Thomas Monroe Campbell. His house, which was recently demolished, is down the street from my house. So what keeps me up at night? This question used to be easy. I used to love to go to parties and people like, oh, what keeps you up at night? And I'd always be like, my ambition. And they'd be like, ooh, dope. But as I've grown, toxic capitalism has become more aware and present. You know, they say the body keeps the score. So as I've grown, it's not my ambition that keeps me up at night. I have these like stress mares, you know, where I'm like trying to get somewhere so quick and using all the resources and tools I have around me to get there. And no matter what I do, no matter how smart I am, no matter how I try to calculate the next move, I just can't get from where I'm at to where I want to be. And that's what keeps me up at night. The fear of having everything I need, having the will, having the ambition, and still like not making it where I'm supposed to be. So I guess what's keeping me up at night is trying to control and navigate a future that doesn't necessarily include me in it. So I'm working on that. My therapist says we'll get through it. And that's all I got.
Dr. Lindsay, yes, it was no disrespect, just to be clear, not mentioning that I have put myself in the space that we're under the family tree, but I also need to remind myself that even family needs to remind itself where we come from. I have taken it upon myself not to say Dr. Dima unless I'm speaking to older men who want to feel like I don't have anything to say. Then I'll invoke that doctor. Then I'll invoke that PhD and say, what? But I digress. Thank you so much for that. And our grandparents, our grandfathers. I recently found out that my grandfather was also an amazing tailor, and all his tools are somewhere in the village in Nubia, and I will find them somewhere. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for sharing. And last but certainly not least, here with us on the screen, Jonny, Chef Jonny.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, first, thank you, Queen, for that lovely introduction. It was like a trance. I really appreciated it. And thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And I just always love hearing these stories. I think I'm the young buck out of everyone that's here, and I've been following you guys' footsteps. And I would say that's who I am. I'm a student. I'm a student of life. I'm a student of so many different things. But I would say I'm more so a vessel. I'm a vessel of our ancestors' wildest dreams. I'm not who my parents were, unfortunately. I'm not anybody who in my family has ever been. I am one of one. My family comes from some really deep poverty and institutionalism. And I think that they experienced those things and they knew those things. And they created a pathway for myself and my peers to be able to not be a product of those things, but to be an open vessel to what our community and what our culture needs. And I think that's who I am. I'm just a vessel here to do the work of the people. And as far as the things that keep me up at night, man, to piggyback off of what Dr. Lindsay said, I would say my ambition is probably one of the things that keep me up at night. But the thing that probably keeps me up at night the most is our lack of urgency. Urgency is something that really holds near and dear to my heart. I truly do believe that you should do it right or do it twice. But in situations like these, you gotta go with the wind. And I think that there are too many of us that are struggling for food. Too many of us that are living in such deep-rooted poverty that it keeps me up at night thinking that nobody else is or not enough of us, are woefully and gainfully employed into helping each other instead of helping ourselves as individuals. And I'm 100% about the idea of communalism, and not necessarily with the idea of the individuality. Whatever needs to be done for us as a people should come first before what we need done for ourselves individually. And I think that's what the mentality that'll take us beyond where we are. When we look at politics and so many other things, we vote based on what we need, based on what we believe, not necessarily based on what's best for us as a community, even if it means you get the short end of the stick. And I think that's what keeps me up at night is I don't mind having the short end of the stick, as long as 200 years from now our people have the long end of the stick. And I think that's what keeps me up at night.
Thank you. I'm just going to preface and say, can everyone hear me all right? Yeah? Okay. All these emotions and all this energy is giving me a very runny nose, and I know it might not look good, but I will be sniffling because it's this is what keeps me up at night. How do I get all our family to know and understand and see and believe that we're not alone in what we're doing? That so many of us are doing everything they can, everything they know how. How do we connect these dots? What keeps me up at night is all these dots, are all the dots I come across and all the dots I know each one of you is coming across, and how we can connect them, and how this family can help, how our global family can help, is utilize this technology that we have that's being used to divide us, that's being used to prop this one narrative and paint us with one brush. Flip that script. Let's reclaim this narrative, use this technology, and tag our people. When you see something being done and you know someone working on something similar, tag them. Call on them. Introduce people to it. Even if you don't know them, just tag them. What they do with it is what they do with it. But let's start connecting one another. Let's start coming together. Let's start celebrating all that we are, all that we know we are, all that they're trying very, very desperately and very deliberately to say that we are not. Because this narrative that our global Black family is lacking, that all that comes out of us is war-torn or diseased, or whatever it is that they are peddling, is simply not true. And it's time that we come forward with this truth. And I cannot be more honored and more privileged and more blessed to be sharing with you all this learning experience from these amazing Black history makers that we have with us here. I just want to make sure that we have the video ready. In this time, as we get Leah's video ready to stream, this is another amazing human being, another amazing soul, and you'll see why in just a second, who wasn't able to join us in person on this live, but took time to create this video to be with us and be with you and share with you what Black history is to her from Soulfire Farm. And as it's being pulled up, I just want to give a big shout out and thanks to Josh from AGC, who's behind the scenes making all this magic happen. People, please give some Josh a shout out, and the entire AGC family who so lovingly pulled this together, and I just get to enjoy it and be on the screen with you wonderful people. That's really all I've done. Josh, whenever you're ready.
Greetings, family, peace and blessings. My name is Leah Penniman. I use all pronouns, and I am one of the founding co-directors and the farm manager at Soulfire Farm in Mohican Territory, Grafton, New York. We are an Afro-Indigenous centered community farm that's dedicated to uprooting racism and seeding sovereignty in the food system. And I'm really grateful to be here with you all for a Growing Cultures honoring of Black history and Black futures. And one of the ways that I honor and celebrate Black history is by thinking about the incredible contributions that our people have made and continue to make to the agrarian tradition. And so I want to use my time to give thanks to the ancestors and the contemporaries who have made these contributions that make it possible for us to have a powerful relationship to land and good food on our plates. I want to start by giving thanks to the ancestral grandmothers who braided seeds of okra, cowpea, black rice, agusi melon, millet, sorghum, and other grains into their hair before being forced to board transatlantic slave ships because they believed against odds in a future of tilling and reaping on soil, and they believed that we, their descendants, would exist to inherit that seed. And along with the seed, of course, they stowed away so many brilliant traditions and ways of being in right relationship with one another and the earth. And so we also give thanks for the soil testing methods that they brought with them. For example, the texture by feel and by sight of the Yoruba people that allow us to use our 5 senses to determine how healthy and bountiful our soil is. We give thanks for the vermicomposting, the composting with worms that started with Cleopatra in Egypt, who put out a decree that anyone who harmed an earthworm would be punished, and really believed in the importance of protecting the earthworm, which in turn enhanced the fertility of the soils of the Nile River Delta. We give thanks to the women of Ghana and Liberia for inventing another form of compost called African dark earth, which is a super rich black pyrogenic compost that captures carbon and enhances fertility. And they believe that everybody has an obligation to add to those layers of compost so you can actually determine the age of a community by digging down and measuring the depth, since each person and each generation has contributed. We give thanks to our folks in Haiti for coming up with the Jardin Lacou, which is one of hundreds of permaculture combinations of trees with understories of bushes and perennial and annual crops and integration of livestock. And these systems become self-perpetuating and self-renewing and provide complete nutrition for the community. We give thanks to the people of what is now Kenya for their terracing system called Fanyaju, or throw it upwards, ways of preventing erosion and using marginal lands to support the sustenance of our people. We give thanks to the farmers of Namibia and Angola, the Ovambo people, for inventing a form of raised beds that super concentrates fertility and manages water, and is the basis for how so many of us farm organically today, also using raised beds. And for the Dahomey people for coming up with the Dokpwe, which later became the Combit in Haiti, which is an incredible system of mutual support that does not rely on wage labor, to get things done, but instead these mutual aid societies where we take turns helping each other on one another's farms, providing music and food and uplifting culture and celebration around that work so that the things that we need to do get done in a way that is non-exploitative and in a way that is celebratory. We give thanks to the women of Nigeria and later in the Caribbean for the susu, which is a proto-credit union, a form of folks putting in money and resources at regular intervals into a collective pot so that we can take turns getting loans and grants from this collective pot to do things like build a market stall or buy livestock or send our children to school. And we give thanks to the ways that these incredible technologies are carried forward and manifest in the diaspora. We're so grateful to Fannie Lou Hamer for starting Freedom Farm Cooperative, which was a safe haven for sharecroppers who were organizing during the civil rights movement and who were either kicked off or found it unsafe to stay on these plantations where they were sharecroppers. And they worked together to produce food, to provide scholarships and burial fees for their members, to share these resources with the community. We give thanks to all the brilliant minds out of Tuskegee University, including Dr. George Washington Carver, who's arguably founders of the modern regenerative and organic movement, who taught a generation of farmers to use cover crops, to rotate their crops, to pull muck out of the swamps and leaves out of the forests in order to fortify their soils, who believed that soil was sacred and a gift from God. And also out of Tuskegee, Booker T. Watley, who's arguably the founder of the whole farm to table situation. So whether we're talking about the CSA, community supported agriculture, whether we're talking about pick your own, or the idea of having a newsletter so that people can know about your farm, these ideas came from ancestor Watley. We also give thanks to the Black Panther Party for many things, including their free breakfast program, which fed 20,000 children every single day, and which was the basis for a lot of the free food programs that we have out of our schools and community centers that center the survival needs of our children. We give thanks to Hattie Carthen and all of the urban gardeners, community gardeners who saw the need to turn vacant and abandoned lots into oases of culture, food, and community. And really reclaim our urban spaces. And we give thanks to all the legacy organizations that have been tirelessly, fighting for the rights of Black farmers and continue to do so, such as the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, the Land Loss Prevention Project, the Black Belt Justice Center, the National Black Farmers Association, and so many more. SAFON, Black Family Land Trust, and it is, because of them that we, the returning generation of farmers, is able to have something to build upon. And so my message for the children, what I want to teach the children on this Black History Celebration Day is that you belong to the lands. You've always belonged to the lands, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. She yearns for and misses the feel of your bare feet on her back, and you are welcome on the land. So I wish the best for everyone. Happy Black History and Black Futures Month, and have a blessed and beautiful day.
Wow. Thank you, Leah. You are with us in spirit, and what a strong spirit it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that lesson, for all the lessons. Half of the information you said I didn't know. So I hope you're tuning in and listening to this later. I'm really speechless. I don't even know what to say. Okay, well, let the celebrations begin. Let's just all unmute and let in all the sounds, let in all the energy, bring in all the questions, and have these conversations. Queen Quet, I believe you wanted to answer the question first, so let's start there. And from there, please hop in, jump in. As I said, I'm really here to learn. I mean, color coded and everything. I'm just here to learn and ask questions. Please.
Yeah. Yes. Well, first and foremost, they said let the sound in. Yes, so we have to do that to join back together, to reunite around that circle of the drum that they've fought so hard to take from us. That's why everything I tweeted about this, everything I posted about it, said to bring the drum. We are the drum. We're the living drum. So when you ask the question, what keeps me up at night? And I'm just going to ask my brother Jonny to do me a favor, because your background noise, could you just mute for a minute? Because I want to make sure everybody hears it clearly. That's it. Yeah. And so everyone says these things about staying up at night in a way that keeps them up because of stress, where actually for me, what keeps me up at night is praying over all of what all of you have said. I stay up at night because God has me up at night seeking. And so I am up at night. As much as I'm a computer scientist and love technology and can program it like the rest of them are doing, I know to unplug from it. I know that it has created altars, but not the kind of altars we're here to celebrate today to our ancestors, but altars to people's egos. And so therefore I unplug from that, and I spend my nights praying and meditating and focusing, and as we would say, going back into the wilderness and things like that. And so they're clean, praying and meditating and focusing. And why? Because one of the key elements of our continuation, to keep a circle continuous, you have all the dots that you keep mentioning, my sister Dima. You have to have all those dots. As a mathematician, pixels are on your screen. Computer scientists, these are pixels, they're dots. They only look like a picture, an image, a video, because they're together, they're united. So if we want to have the full array of color of who we are, we have to be united. So we cannot think that, oh, I should ignore the elders. I can ignore what the ancestors did. That's inappropriate. And it means that you are etching God out. That's what your ego is about. And so if you want to bring in that godly power, that godly energy, you pray, you meditate, you center, it's always about unity. It always brings together a circle. That's why you see the Gullah Geechee Nation flag. It's a circle. It's a circle. It's a circle unbroken. You see the center is the tree of life. It's human bodies intertwined, representing all of our ancestors. And they're rooted where their souls are in the soil. And so from that root comes the fruit. You don't have fruit without the root. So the children can't get rid of the parents. The children can't get rid of their grandparents and expect to exist. So when we hear and we discuss the things that all of you have said, that a lot of times is what I'm seeing is the missing element that I grew up with. Underneath the true oak tree and thing like that, in the bush arbor for true and thing like that, is intergenerational. And respect is center. Faith is a foundation. And so when we have that faith that God brought our ancestors through so God can do it for you, then there's no way that I see you and don't see me, and that you see me and don't see you. And if you see me as you, then what else would you do but unify, share, commit to one another, to uphold one another, to be united in the fight. And what you wouldn't do is allow anybody, no matter what nationality, no matter what race, to come between us. We are inextricably tied together. So a lot of times the work ain't outside the house, the work is inside the house. That where we see brothers and sisters just point blank acting a fool, they need to be called to task on that. That's what our elders used to do. They would draw you in and say, look here, you no manners any. Down right here. What that is? What honor to do? What are you doing for? Okay. And they would straighten you out right there and then, because they knew that if you don't go ahead and subdue that, get rid of that right then, you are going to create a monster. And now that there is a monster out here on the loose that's been trying to rip us apart, that means we have to hold together that much stronger as African people around the globe. It's that easy and it's that simple. Don't think because the monster might look brown because it's, you know, got a little melanin in it, that it ain't part of what is trying to tear us loose. We have to admit that reality. The difference is the monster can die if you don't feed it, though. Don't feed the drama. Don't feed reality shows that are not real in the first place. Don't feed and seed what you don't want. Feed and seed what we do want. And I know all of our children with dear, y'all from agricultural backgrounds. I don't speak in Tuskegee so much of time I can't count. So I know my sister doctor know what I talk about. I know what my brothers, the chefs, know I talk about. The chefs, y'all know where us. Brother Jonny, that's why I asked you for just get the background noise out. Because I think sometimes that's what's wrong. We got too much background noise coming in, keeping us up. But that noise don't have to be the one we hear. Let's hear God. Let's hear that drum that says, come on, y'all, get back together, stay united, never break apart. So I just wanted to share that with you, that's what I do in the waking hours. I pray, meditate, and then I rest and I work. I tell people I recharge and I work because I'm working for what I want, not what I don't want.
Ashe.
I had to unmute so you could hear my fingers snapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's Queen. I so agree with it. I mean, I just put something in the thing saying how we gonna start off with Queen and end up with fire, because between the two of y'all got me like I'm trying to sitting up here in front of my son, like, you know, I don't know why I'm tearing. This left eye of mine is just.
I know why. Because you can't get up. Because you really want to shout, and that shout power can't come out no other way right now.
I know. But you know, one of the really interesting things is my son is right here.
Yes. Oh, that's
right
who you were referring to.
And that's my youngest boy right there. My youngest male in the family, and he's 11 now. And one of the things that I've realized is that if we want to have that food security that we want to have, we got to really start honing in also on our youth, because true story for me is, Lindsay, I know what you mean when you say you want to go back to Tuskegee. I don't have any wonderful things to talk about when it comes to the South growing up here in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? And when I came, and I promised, not only would I not come back, but unless somebody died and I cared, I wasn't coming back. And I have been back home for over a decade now.
So somebody you care about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been back for over a decade now, and I am noticing where I failed by not coming back earlier, but not as though it's just a negative. I came back when I was supposed to come back.
Divinely ordered.
Divinely ordered. But I understand having held on to some of the things that used to happen, and then thinking, a lot of people think that it stopped at some point, the New South and all this other stuff. But the world as a whole is overt and covert racism. We just we gotta say that out loud and understand that is there, regardless. I don't care about affirmative action. I don't care about all the rights and things. If anybody watched Men lately, you definitely want to fall off the thing and be like, damn, it took that long, And so we have to get our youth and empower our youth more, because a lot of the, it's really interesting. All the things that George Washington Carver put into place, Booker T. Whatley, the Black Panthers, all that stuff was for our youth. Right. And somehow those youth grew up and forgot or stopped or were able to run
or got killed. Some of them got killed.
Definitely got killed.
Yeah.
And right now we gotta figure out a way to bring this generation that's happening right now into the fold of where things are and where that future is going to be, because there is no longer the song was the children are our future kind of a thing. Like the kids nowadays, like my 10-year-old, my youngest daughter is 10. Her mindset though, and understanding what's going on in the world is like a girl when I was 20 back in the day, like 30 years ago, because she's inundated with so much information. Like I'm having a conversation with her the other night and I was like, oh my God, I'm not talking to a 10-year-old anymore, because she knows things that nobody would have known 20 years ago when they were 10, because they didn't have the computer like they do right now. There's nothing she can't find out. And she's not having a child kind of conversation with me. She's having more of an adult conversation with me. Like this boy right here, sometimes I have to like realize that he is like I have also taught him things like, hey, you can do research on this thing, right? It's not just for toys, it's not just for games. And he does that. And I'm just saying, I don't have the answer completely, but I do know this. When this boy is at the farm, he works on the farm. When he comes back to the city of the ATL, he understands he's in the city of the ATL. But he's getting enough of both of these worlds to understand that the eggs, matter of fact, he called the other day and said, hey, Dad, on your way up, make sure you bring some eggs. Because he understands where eggs come from. He understands what an egg tastes like right out the chute as compared to going into Publix and getting something that's been in there for 4 months before it even got into Publix. He understands the difference. And I think we got to figure out some kind of way to just, like, there should be youth at each one, at all these things that we're doing. They should be either in the background, having a conversation on the screen. And I'm not saying that we're not doing it, but I'm just saying that everybody that's connected right now should have some sort of children connected, because our kids nowadays, so far as technology goes, when you said computer science, Queen Quet, I think about my middle son and his ability to code right now. I'm like, how you 13 years old coding on a computer? Like that, you got people with PhDs that been to school for how long to learn how to do all this stuff, and this boy's sitting there like, oh no, Daddy, this is all you got to do, and this what, we got to bring these kids completely into the fold, because where technology is right now, and I don't know if anybody understands, and I'm going to go into agriculture as a thing, and then I'm going to step off the soapbox really quick, is that right now, the large $1 million tractors don't have a person in it. It's all computerized. It can go out there and seed 100 acres of arugula, come back and cut 100 acres of arugula, and then come back again when it knows the arugula has popped up a second time to cut it again. That's technology. Absolutely. And no matter how much we want to walk away from it or talk about how much it's done, it is not going anywhere. And if we also want to take care of our food system, we need to figure out where technology affects us inside our food system. And math is important, because guess what? If you can teach a child some math on how to calculate how much water hits a tin roof and rolls off of it, now we're talking about these things. So when we're talking about why do you need math, here's why you need math. Because pretty soon the water supply going to get short. How you going to collect it? Do you know how to filtrate it? Do you know how to do your own filtration system with charcoal and rocks and sand? Like, these are all things that if we don't get our kids more involved, we are going to be getting our water and our food from someone that has doctored it to make sure that we aren't here anymore.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right. And you were saying it correctly. And I just want to do this for you. But I also, as a computer scientist, want to say thank you, because you're talking about living in balance in a technological world and in our traditions. And I was a person that started doing that umpteen years ago, and people looked at me like I had 2 to 3 heads, because they did not grasp even what a computer was, and the internet was brand new. So now what we have to recognize, though, and I would tell people, watch the film the social dilemma, because the people who are programmers don't give their children phones and things. And then they watch what they're doing and they make it clear why. Because a lot of what the children think they know, they don't know. They are actually getting fed information that is called content that's being created by others to fuel the altars of the ego I was talking about, to make them think they know more than parents and the elders, when then instead of being out there planting the seed in the ground, they're being uprooted themselves and they don't even realize it because they're stuck on their device. So I thank you for sitting here as a Gullah Geechee Black man saying, I came back home, but I brought my children. I brought the next generation of warriors back to the soil from whence their roots come, and show them how to work that land and stand. Work the technology so it benefit we. Don't let them divide we. That's how we be. Thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for bringing in an angle which we absolutely need to talk about. And I just want to reference one of the comments that was just put on the screen by, I think it was Myron York, said, sounds like someone taught those children to seek answers to the right questions. When we're talking about bringing in that younger generation, our future, what got you started? There was clearly a transition for each of you. There was clearly a, don't look so shocked, Matthew. Yes, you, all of us. What got you started? Like, what got you, what made you go home? Why did you go home? There was another comment that said, a lot of us are being called home by spirit. And in so many ways, I believe that, but there's a certain click and it will vary from each one of us. And I think it's a great opportunity to show how we're not all one thing. We're one, but we're not all one thing.
Not monolithic.
Right.
We're definitely not monolithic. So if we can all just take a moment, and you can remember that moment where you said, yep, time to go home. What was it for you? And whatever home is for you, whatever home is, time to go to the soil, time to look at food, time to Nubia's calling in my case. What was it for you?
You know, I can say for me,
yeah,
that I don't want to. I don't want us to not forget about the time periods that we're in, or were in. So when I graduated from high school, the only thing I wanted to do was go to culinary school. Like, I wanted to go to culinary school. Like no, I knew how to cook. I was like, I want to go to school. I want to be top chef. And we talking back before there was a Food Network. My dad had been a baker by trade. And his response to me was, there's a lot of goddamn things you can be. Cooking ain't gonna be one of them. Because in his lifetime, from the 50s and 60s, he had never seen a Black man that ran his own kitchen, that wasn't some kind of like small mom and pop restaurant somewhere, you know, hole in the wall kind of thing. My dad was like, nope, you can't do that. Can't. Matter of fact, not only can you not gonna do it. The opportunities for life are so much bigger. He says now, if he knew then what he knows now, I remember the first time I was in the New York Times, he says, so they actually call you chef? This is my dad saying that to me. And I said, yeah. He was like, okay, walk me through how you did that. He said, because I've never seen a Black man called chef. Now imagine this now. And my dad just said this to me in the 90s. He was like, I'm so proud that you made it and decided to do this. And I was like, well, Dad, imagine where I'd be if I would have done it 20 years ago. And then there was also this thing about coming back to the land. When I told, I was the chef at the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. Yes, where the insurrection happened. I used to be the chef there. And I remember coming home with my sister and having the conversation about, you know what, sis, we need to go back to this land and we need to take care of it. We can't lose this. Like it's been being farmed. Why don't we go back to farming it? And my first response from people that were close to me was like, boy, you going home for that slave work? Don't nobody do that slave work. And I said, well, how does the food get into the, man, I ain't going out there where I can't see me working no fields. And so my response then was, well, I'm not going home to pick cotton. This is my land. I want to own my land. And they were like, oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. And so I think that part of what brought me all the way in was the fact that I had started to realize that I need to stop letting even my own people shape my thought process of what being and doing specific things that used to be considered, right, to what it is now, right? And I think about all those farmers when I was a kid from Carolina to Florida that were truck farmers. They brought their stuff to the edge of the road and sold all of it. Kids that went to college now. You know, so we've taken a lot of our own economic system away from ourselves and given it away. And I think that that's all the things that started bringing me back home over a decade ago, because I started to realize that as much as I was consuming, it wasn't from anybody that was on this screen. I wasn't buying no clothes from either one of your grandparents. I wasn't on the islands. I wasn't at Chef Jonny Rhodes' place. I wasn't doing any of that. So I think for me, those are the things that like really pulled me back. And then I have children, and I started to realize that if I want my children to have the right example, I too have to do the right things. So I really don't, anything they say they want to be, I'm like, go do it. If they change their mind, okay, no problem. Go on to the next thing, because we all did all those things. And you know, none of my kids wanted to be a fireman. None of my kids wanted to be like my kids want to be realistic things. And so I think that's why I'm here.
Woo.
Y'all better stop me. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go on mute and I'm not gonna come back.
Don't be sorry. You are dropping some serious knowledge and wisdom and inspiration here. There you go. Ali Tijani tuning in from Paris, telling you so inspiring, chef. Yeah. Ali Tijani, Sudanese. Dr. Lindsay Lunsford, what got you started?
Oh, well, I didn't mean to cut over you, but I was really inspired by some of the comments that Chef Matthew made. And Queen Quet earlier. Like, I've got like 7 quotes. Like, I'll put them in the chat box. I have like 7 quotes from you. And I was thinking a lot about your comment about time, like where you come from. So I'll own my time, right? I'm a child of the 90s. So I was raised by a lot of those little dots coming together. As Queen Quet said, they came together to make television screens, and they helped raise me, right? And I used to be ashamed of that, but I'm not ashamed of that because I'm not ashamed of any part of my story, right? So it was these television shows. And you know, the 90s, we had some golden era TV shows. Oh, golden era, right? And why is gold of value? But anyway, we had some great TV and we had some bad TV, but you got to take the good with the bad to learn. That's education. So I would just say, being a child of the 90s, I grew up learning from storytellers, visual storytellers. Like, you got to show me, to tell me, to reach me, to make me feel it. So I would credit a lot of this to Aaron McGruder. If you're not familiar with Aaron McGruder, he's a griot. Yes. Boondock. He's I would call him a cultural historian, if you just want to like elevate, you know, if we're just into titles. But he's a comic, and he is an illustrator, and he made the show Boondocks. But he also made the show, which is highly, highly underrated, which is Black Jesus. Shout out to the elders, Charlie Murphy. And John Witherspoon, who both transitioned, but their last projects were Black Jesus. Black Jesus really touched me. I'll let you go Google and find out what it was about. But basically, long story short, if we cut all the respectability politics out of it, Black Jesus comes back in a long hair weave, beautiful, luxurious, and he's 6 foot tall, and he's in Compton. And he's like saving his homies, and he's in the hood, and he's like reaching the people. He's gospeling. He's reaching his disciples. And their ultimate project was to build a community garden so they could like grow their own marijuana without being enemies of the state, so that they could also gather and grow their own food, and so they could have a place to be like without punishment. Like they could have their own oasis. And my early 20 self saw that and was like, I hear you, God. I hear you, ancestors. Put forth the vision you want me to produce. And that show really touched me. I was like, that's the answer. Everybody wants to make, and I didn't even really want to get into, I didn't believe at that time in higher degrees or education. I was like, that's the man, right? Everybody up in those halls, like, oh, I loved Elder De Gregory. He said, like, my God, like those halls of sin and tyranny, when he talked about like that really, really high Ivy League education, like what they've caused to the world. I'm not talking about HBCUs, but I'm biased. But anyway, long story short, I was like, yeah, this could be me. But not to give all the glory to just chance, ancestors, and artistry. That's why artists is so important what you create. Aaron Magruder didn't know when he made that television show, it would make a young woman feel like being able to visualize her purpose on screen, no matter how comical it is. Because I think respectability, we feel like our higher purpose always has to come to us in just some ordained way, but not just like creativity and, you know, what my inner child likes to vibe off of. But I would also add, and this is to what you said, Chef Chef Matthew. Sorry, I got excited. But what I would add to that is an elder saw me, like really saw me and gave me a seat at the table, not to his benefit. It probably could have been to his risk, but he took a chance on me because I would say he saw my hustle, my indelible, unknockable hustle. But I don't know. I feel like his ancestors spoke to him and he gave me a chance, which I think is something as I transition in my lifetime and through my lifespan, that's something more elders I see as it comes back and forth. They see us and sometimes they like, I don't know if you call it putting you under your wing or maybe bringing out your wing, but they show you. But one thing I would just add to that, and even what you said, Chef Michael, about your father kind of looking at your dream and putting his fear upon it, we're still doing that every day. So be careful with your youth development work. Be careful because hurt people. And my inner child needs a lot of work. So if your inner child ain't together, don't just be grabbing these children, putting forth your fears on them because your world, your vision of the future is incomprehensible to their vision of the future. So if they tell you, like, I want to be this, I want to be that, I don't want to be president, I want to like make cryptocurrency or whatever they want to do. Like, I want to make comic books. Like, don't put because we've just come from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all that trauma, right? Don't put that on them. Don't put that on them. So like, yes, youth development programs are great, but hurt people. So if you're just going there to impart your knowledge on a young mind, back it up. Because that's white supremacy and education anyway. That's not how we learn. If you're going there to hear the message, because they say out of the mouths of babes, right? If you're going to hear the message and to reciprocate and to guide and to give space for, then please engage with the youth. But if you're just going to impart your great wisdom, there's other things you can do. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Doc. The doctor did a house call. Thank you, Doctor.
Scripture up in here. All right now.
Can you please have your show?
Yes. I got a question for the doctor though, on what you just said. I heard you in terms of the intergenerational aspects and stuff. But what about what you keep repeating? Hurt people. And what if instead of being in a circle of healing like we're in here today, it's just a bunch of bitter folk? It don't matter what, they are the same age. It's not nobody else coming in from the previous generation to talk to them. They're just all the same age. And so we used to call it blind. Our elders told us that blind leading the blind. But how would you address that in terms of the context of what I was saying earlier? Because it doesn't matter who it is and what age they are. If they're injuring us, we need to back off from that. But if you're already that hurt person, don't you just make a bed for everybody to jump in that's like you? So we all in here just kind of wallowing around in that bed instead of somebody saying, get up. And in scriptures, take up your bed and walk, so that we walk forward. So how would you address that just for the circles of people that aren't listening to any group ahead of them? They just are pulling together everybody the same age.
What I heard, like what spoke to me, what Spirit said to me is what you said about get up. I remember when I was struggling through something and I wanted to give up, I was like randomly, right? So you got to listen. Like you said, if you cut out the background noise, then you can hear God. And God might not, and this doesn't have to be on the, I know. Like whatever your religious spirit, just give me a minute, work with me. I'm trying to get there. Right. All I'm trying to say is you can hear things in mysterious ways. So I was just riding in the car and I heard over the radio an evangelistic preacher. I was like, let me quickly turn this. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait a minute. Maybe that's what certain messages ain't gonna reach you because you already built to not hear them. So I was like, give this man 30 seconds. So I listened. And this man said he studied the Bible. And of all his studyings of the Bible, he studied what angels said when they spoke. And he's asked the man, he said, do you know what's the most common thing that angels say when they appear and speak to people? And he's like, I don't know, like, hark, the Lord is coming. He was like, no, close, but no. He was like, they appear to tell you to get up. He's like, throughout the Bible, when angels come, they come at a moment when you're about to stop and they tell you to get up. Like, get up. Faith without works is dead. Get up.
That's right.
So when you talk about people leading each other and they're blind, and it's like, how do we get up? And even going to what Malcolm X said, it's like, how do you wake people up? Like, you can't. He specifically said you can't. The worst, when he asked about the movement, the civil rights movement at the time, he said the worst problem is we got a bunch of sleeping people working together, trying to unite around a central cause. We will get nowhere if people don't wake up. And they're like, well, how do you wake the people up? Do you tell them about their conditions, how bad it is outside, how much poverty they face? He was like, no, because people know better than you how they suffer. You wake the people up by telling them their capacity for greatness. So all these sleeping people, if they knew better, maybe they would do better. And Ella Baker said, if you shine the light, people will see it, So that's what research is. So I think for these sleeping people, you shine light. And you will have everybody, like Booker T. Washington said, everybody is not to be saved, right? The road, whatever. Everybody's not to be saved.
You got to go on without them sometimes. Exactly. Yeah.
Like Harriet said, I will shoot you or you will get left here today. But we're making it to freedom. So I just say that to say, show them a better way. And by showing them a better way is show their ways to them. So all I say about hurt people is I think, like you said, technology builds altars to egos. Well, then that also builds practices of how do we praise and stroke egos? And do we post pictures of us with a bunch of little children and like how we're helping them and how we're doing? So I just wanted to shine light on that like, yes, we got to work with the youth, but I think so many times, look how people work with us. We got to go back to how we were worked with. And like how that did and did not benefit us. So that's just what I wanted to say on that.
I agree. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for that. I'd like to bring in here a quick quote from our Cape Verdean brother, Baiz, who said as he opened a Global Day of Action on the 22nd, Global Day of Action for Black Power, he said, there is no guide to waking people up. They just wake up. There's no guide. You do it. And I'm so grateful to you bringing that in and saying it in that way, because sure, we have to work with youth. We need to work with our youth, but we need to be ready. We need to be absolutely ready to be wrong. We need to be absolutely ready to learn from our youth. We can't send them out there to learn all these lessons to deal with this technology and be like, when they're coming to teach us or show us something, say like, who are you coming to teach? We need to be okay with being wrong, and we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, just for a little bit. And from there, I want to pivot and bring in some, you know, because you say they stay quiet for a bit, but then they're holding back some serious gems that are coming to drop. So, Sister Amber, come through, please. What got you started?
I mean, I feel like me and Jonny are probably the youngest here, and like I'm in between the millennial generation and Gen Z. So it's like we're talking about children, but I am a child essentially. I feel like everything that's being said is my truth, which is why I haven't tried to talk. It's like what I feel and have thought and have said to myself, everything that was just said to each other. But I think my truth is I just come to agriculture with a story, and one that is very different. I don't have any direct ties to the South. My family doesn't have things documented past 4 generations ago. So my complexities were growing up in the North, but all we knew was concrete. I think on a cellular DNA, spiritual level, yes, we knew about other livities that have existed in our lineage, but directly, I mean, I was the youth, 7 years ago that didn't know that the egg is also the chicken cutlet in styrofoam, which is also the feathery chicken. Like I had no clue. And in my family, like I come from a family of not woke people, not in the sense of connecting with land, not in the sense of like I come from families of drug dealers and the projects, and like I come from the gritty and the raw. And so for me, my waking up is like I had to. I mean, I swear on everything I know, the universe made it clear. I was the perfect Black girl from the hood with the 4.0 GPA and the perfect SAT score. And really, it was Great Spirit that was like, you are not going the traditional academia way. And I say that to say 4 months into my college career, my father, who was an NYPD officer for 20 years, murdered my mom. And that's what did it. That's what woke me up. That's when I was a baby, but I was being treated as an adult. But I was hungry and I was homeless and I needed income. But I was already an adult. So my truth is like I went straight to the soil. Literally, like I went straight to the soil because there was nothing else that could understand what I was going through. And to this day, I feel that is true. I feel my circumstances were very unique as a Black woman from Brooklyn. There was nobody that could tell me what to do. And personally, in my lineage, I mean, there's really no elders. My mom lost her parents. My dad was disowned by his. So once I lost my parents, it was finalized. Like, we have to turn this around. So personally, the soil is what saved me. I would not be here in front of you in this level of health if it wasn't for me nose diving straight into the soil. Because on a real level, I recognized very quick as I saw my mother's casket lowering into the ground that I have to tend to the soil. Once I saw my mother in the soil, there is nothing else that I need to do besides communicate with my mothers through the soil. And that was my truth. Like once I read The Secret Life of Trees, and it was like, well, trees talk to each other through their roots in the soil, then I knew I have to know, not think, not hope. I have to know that every time I plant something, that it's going to my ancestors. It's communicating with my parents. So for me, farming was never an act of others. I was never thinking very much about others. It just so happens to be work that affects others. For me, it was completely selfish. It was the most selfish act I could ever do after losing my parents. Is just say, I just want to spend the rest of my life planting in prayer to my own people, and to have a mother as an ancestor. I can't think of a more powerful way to come in with vision into agriculture.
Amber, I just want to hug you from here because you represent all my family in BK. I got a lot of folks that I love in BK. I lived there. I stomped the concrete with you, sister. But you are that rose that broke through the concrete that Tupac talked about. A lot of people don't realize that. So I appreciate you. A lot of love for you, and sending you love and blessings, truly, as you continue to connect to the souls of the soil. Your journey is a powerful one. Appreciate you.
Sorry, I needed a moment. Thank you so much for healing us with you as you share this truth. I'm just going to give it to Chef Jonny to share how you started.
Thank you. Certainly. Man, it's a lot to process with everyone. I sat here and listened, and I'm almost lost for words. I hardly ever found myself like that. But I appreciate everyone sharing their story. I wish I was. I wish I was a little bit more extroverted to where I could, share probably more of my personal story. But I think I experienced, I share the same sentiment with Amber. Listening to Dr. Lindsay and listening to, Chef Matthew, and then listening to Queen. You guys have such strong, deep connections to your Blackness. And from being 100% honest, I don't think I discovered my Blackness until I was in my late 20s. I didn't come from a family that was, proud to be Black. Much like Dr. Lindsay, I'm a 90s baby. I grew up in the 90s, and I grew up in a time frame where dark-skinned men weren't in style. I grew up in a time frame where nappy hair wasn't cool. When you're poor, dark-skinned, ghetto, and living in the South, it took me until my late 20s to understand how damaging those infractions were to me, mentally and psychologically and physically, because it creates a dark cloud of self-doubt and a deep reverence for things that don't have a reverence for you. And I would say, I became awoken or aware of those things. And I think I very first became aware of those things the very first time I served as a United States Marine. So the very first time I ever went overseas, you go through all these different trainings and things like such. They tell you what people in the Middle East look like, all right? And then you get over there, and they look like niggas with good hair. I don't know how else to say it. They look like me, but they look like they have hair of which the people in which I was always told had quote unquote good hair. And I was dumbfounded. I was deeply confused. Even sometimes today, I find myself reflecting on that moment of complete shock of, man, this dude looks like he could be related to me. He looks like I would make fun of him for having curly hair at the family reunion. And I think that was the first time that I became aware of my Blackness. And I didn't find it in the United States. I became aware of my Blackness because I saw those people and they didn't look like what I was told they were going to look like. And I had my experiences there, and I came back home, and I would say maybe a year and a half later, not even, I was like 20, 21. Still hadn't really found my Blackness. And the Trayvon Martin situation took place. And being in the military, you're always taught that everybody's your brother, blase, blase. But at that point in time, Barack Obama was the first Black president. So there was a lot of things going on for me trying to not identifying with my Blackness at that point in time. But I saw Barack Obama, I was like, cool, bet. I knew that's what I knew I needed to, be forward with that. But then experiencing the Trayvons and then experiencing the Sterling Browns and all these other things that were going on, growing up in the ghetto, you hear about them, you see them. But then when you leave the ghetto and you still hear about them, and you still see them, you go overseas and you still see it. It felt like there was nothing I could do to run away from it. No matter what corner I turned, no matter where I went, no matter what blanket I tried to hide under, there was no running away from it. Like, my blackness was front and center. And even if I felt like I'm no longer in this place financially, or I'm no longer in this place socially, I couldn't deny myself the emotions that trickled through my veins, the anger that stirred up inside of me. I couldn't avoid those things, and it didn't matter where I was at. And I would say after those experiences, and realizing that all of these people died from the exact same cause, which is a lack of a dominion, a lack of somewhere to call home, right? And I look back at myself and I look back at my family and my experiences and my family experiences, is that no matter what we did, no matter what we said, no matter what we ran to, we were always going to be under someone else's thumb because we never had control. And I feel as if not I feel because feelings ain't facts, but the fact of the matter is we're treated and trained the way animals are. When we get puppies, you train them with treats. You give them food and you take it away. And I look at my community and it's no different. We have very, very poor quality food in our communities, but then we're told if we make good money, you'll have a better life. But then you make good money and you're still eating McDonald's. You're still eating fast food. You become a lawyer, you become a doctor, and you still don't have control because health is wealth. And I experienced that, and I didn't really comprehend that until my experiences started layering each other and bleeding into each other. And they were all hurting me. So I had no idea what I was really feeling. I started working in restaurants. I started working in kitchens because I wanted to learn how to cook, and I wanted to cook at a high level. I didn't want to just cook the way I see our community and our people cook now, but I wanted to cook at what was considered to be Michelin, or what was considered to be this highest level of artistry and food. And I got there, but then I wasn't comfortable. I was the angry black man. I was a lot of different things, but I wasn't myself. And I remember leaving New York City. I remember before I went to New York City, I remember working somewhere. I had an employee or a coworker of mine speak really, really bad to me, like really, really bad to me. And I lost my cool. Said some things that I don't regret saying. And about a week later, my boss pulled me out and said, "Hey, we don't want you to work here anymore because this person doesn't feel comfortable." And I said, "Wait, after all the things that they said to me, I responded, and now they don't feel comfortable working with me?" And it hurt. It hurt because that was a job that I truly enjoyed. I felt like it embraced the artistry, but it didn't embrace who I was. They didn't embrace who I was. And they didn't comprehend all the different things and all the complications that came with me. Because it's one thing to work with black people, but it's another thing to work with black people that come from where I come from. I wasn't raised by black folk that had connection to the soil. My grandmother grew up in the country, and she would always say, "Y'all really don't know what it's like." But she wasn't at the capacity to show us. And the generations that came up in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, for us were so deeply impacted by drugs and alcoholism and Reagan that there wasn't a passageway between my grandmother and myself, not the one that I would need. So it was these traumas and these life experiences that have led me here, because I come from the ghetto. come from poverty. You know, our family did the best they could all the time, still do. But I didn't learn about the Black Panthers until I was 23. I never heard of Fred Hampton until I was 21. So, you know, reading those things and understanding those things and pairing them with my life experiences, it wasn't until my friend got killed where I felt like I had to be a difference maker. We were both in the Marines, but he came home and was still killed. And it made me feel like I can keep rambling into things in which that got us to where we got in the first place, or I can take all my experiences, all my pain, and I can fight. Because like Chef Matthew said, if you got the name, you know you can squabble. But now we got to choose. I have a choice to pick and choose how to squabble, where to squabble, when to squabble. And working in these fine dining restaurants, I got to taste high quality food that I had never tasted before. Never. And I decided that was worth squabbling for. That was worth fighting for. And then I looked at how much it cost to eat there. And I said, this ain't fair because I work here and I can't afford to eat here. So what does that say about people in my community? And there was this album, this hip hop album. I'm a huge hip hop advocate, for better or for worse. It's been my greatest teacher. To Pimp a Butterfly. And I thought, how can I pimp my situation? How can I pimp everything that was done to me and use it for my people? And that's all I can think about. That's all I think about is how can I take this situation or these situations and flip them on their heads. You know, we, as I said earlier, so many of us look at things from a very singular perspective, myself included in that sometimes. But we talk about guns in our community, man. Those are man. Look, we don't need to get rid of guns in our community. Like, people around each other are gonna hurt each other, but the guns in our community can be used to hunt, right? But that's not a conversation that's being had. Instead, we're talking about gun violence with each other instead of redirecting where the gun violence should be held.
Thank you,
and that's
brother.
something that I definitely want to advocate for and use.
Thank you.
And then we talk about community gardens. You know, I love the idea. I think it's great, but families can't survive off a singular community garden. You know, so when I think about those things, and I think about all of that stuff that comes along with it, man, we're a culture of squabblers. Our culture, since we've been in the United States, have been fighters. And I just want all of us to fight. You know, fight like it's our last day here. Feed each other like it's our last day here. You know, you hear a lot about prison, you know, when you live in the ghetto, and you hear about death row and how you get your last meal. Man, what if it was like that for us every day? What would we eat like if we got reparations? You know, and reparations shouldn't be money, it should be land. And that's when I knew I had to fight. You know, when I encountered and I assessed all the different experiences that I had, and I wanted to know how to put them together. Because I am a young buck. I'm not a kid, but I am a young buck, and I do have a lot of different experiences. And sometimes my youth is my ignorance. But sometimes ignorance is exactly what we need. And I'm not afraid to get killed or to die for the cause, because I have my children and I have other people in my community that understand that I'm going in the ground anyway. Just make sure when I go in there, it fertilizes the land and you can eat off of it. And I want to continue that ideology that we have to fight every single day for everything we have. You can put all your energy into policy. You can put all your energy into anything you want. But if you're not going to put your energy into the action, we're really hurting each other.
Brother Jonny, I want to hug you as someone who comes from a family of hunters here in the Gullah Geechee Nation. My father was a hunter. I was always an animal rights activist, so I'd be the one in tears when he bring the deer home. You understand, that kind of thing. But growing up with guns, one of the things I always let people know is guns. I ain't never in my entire Gullah Geechee life seen a gun pick itself up and shoot nobody. The control is not about the gun, it's the control of the people. The people themselves and their spirits have to be aligned properly. We were always raised here to know a gun is not a toy and you can't bring nobody life back. So it's not for you to decide that that life needs to go anywhere just like that because you mad, because you upset, because that person got something more than you got. Or you want what they want. You got and this and that. That's not what you use guns for. So when you said what you said, I didn't want that to get missed in the discussion. It is critical that we overstand. Again, we have invoked the Black Panther name over and over. We have to honor the deacons of defense from which the Black Panther Party got their symbol of a Black Panther and became known as the Black Panthers. The deacons of defense were the armed group from the South that watched after the leaders during the civil rights movement. They were not afraid to enact their right as landowners. Like you said, reparation needs to be land. Well, how are you going to stand? Because you're going to have that person that their ego is out of control that says, well, Johnny got 2 inches more land than I got. You're going to have that. But how do you take a stand and protect that and diffuse a situation where you don't have to use bullets? We joke around here and say, I ain't gonna shoot you because bullet too high, but it's a joke, right? But we don't do it because we were raised to respect the fact that life is the most valuable thing you have. Then land is the next most valuable thing you have in this sphere of existence we call life. So therefore, you need to protect one another. First and foremost, how do you do that? If we got a disagreement, we put that the guns ain't out. Guns are not out. Okay. So if Chef Matthew and I got to talk about something, we should be able to get underneath the oak tree, just the 2 of us. Even if we have to go like this year, ain't nobody gonna be dead afterward. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of communities have been provided guns with no training, with no type of narrative that goes with it. It's like getting something in the mail and you got to build it, but ain't no instructions. So you just try to put stuff together. That's what we see with dumping them intentionally in urbanized communities where nobody owns anything versus when people own land like you were talking about and them being trained from children on up how to properly control themselves first and foremost. And then you learn how to control a gun. And a gun is not a toy. And a life, a Black life, is something you should value if you Black like me. But you got to start valuing it with you first. If you look in the mirror, you see you value you. You see me, you'll value me. You see Sister Dima, you value her. You see Dr. Lindsay, you value her. You see Sister Amber, you value her. You see Chef Farmer Matthew, you value him. Why? Because we're you. And I get it. I feel you. I only wish we were really under the tree because I would have been hugging you and rubbing your back the whole time you were talking. And amen and hallelujah and yes and this and that. But I definitely didn't want that to slip by because some people will look at you as a Black man and get scared because you said what you said. And I just want them to know, those of us who have been raised in hunting families, we know what it is to have guns and have everybody around us have guns, but that doesn't mean that we use them to kill each other. I come from an island where homicide is unknown, but everybody got a gun. So that means it's not about laws on the books. It's about the law in your spirit, the law in your mind. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to embrace you on that, brother, and just send you love for real.
I appreciate that, Queen, so much. I think it's so integral to our survival is our ability to hunt and farm. Like Chef Matthew said earlier, can you clean the water once you collect it? All these things have been so lost in our communities and different spectrums, from the education spectrum to the people that are not educated and living in poverty. Some of the most educated people can't take care of themselves. No different, but you have people that are living in poverty that are more ingenuitive to take care of themselves, but still don't have necessarily the education to do it long term. And my experiences let me know that it's time for that.
Yeah. And Johnny and Amber, I want to say this out loud to both of you. Age and what you all have brought into this sphere of our conversation is set up in, and you also, Dr. Lindsay, is all set up in the wisdom of life. Your life experiences have given you wisdom beyond your years. And there's something that my nana used to say to me all the time is common sense ain't too common. And I want you all to walk in what you are, you know, and walk in your experiences, because it's all the wisdom that you are walking around with. You all everyone on this call has so much to share. Jonny, listening to you alone, I literally, I just want to tell you this. I did the exact same thing that you did. I was 1 year out of the military, working in a hotel. Well, barely 2 years out of the military, working in a hotel. I had learned enough to become a sous chef. Hadn't been to school yet. Applied for it. Wasn't given a position. I trained the new sous chef. I come into work one day. He's telling me what to do. I go off. I walk into the chef's office, shut the door, and was like, what's going on? Because I was 28. I had already had 3 tours in the desert. Nah, dude. This ain't going to happen. And they were like, we got to call DC police because this dude done come unhinged. So trust me, you're not the only one. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you thought you were, but just so you know, you're younger than me, and I did the exact same thing. So it happens so often, and that's why I say you both of y'all, everybody on here is walking around with wisdom from having had life experience. And do not at any point in time let anybody snatch that away or lower it at all. Okay, I just wanted to say that out loud real quick.
Thank you for saying that. And okay, I want to be very mindful of time because we have 14 minutes left. I know for a fact we're going to go over time. Fam, stick around because you you don't want to miss this. 2 things I want to say. One, to bring in a growing culture and some numbers that I've learned since joining a growing culture, which completely echoed what Brother Jonny here said about working in a place and not being able to afford eating there. There is enough food produced today on this earth to feed every single human being on earth. But 80 million people, most of them farmers, go to bed hungry.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we're having this conversation. This is why we do what we do. This is one of the many things that a growing culture is fighting for. And to hear you echo this in the food in the restaurant industry, and to hear it again being echoed by teachers who teach at schools they can't afford to send their children to.
Mm-hmm.
Here at hospitals where Black doctors are healing others at places they can't afford to get treated in themselves. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we need to connect these dots. This is why we need to come through and let each other know that we're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us know we're not alone because, we feel our ancestors' prayers, our support. We feel that love that's being channeled and poured in from people we haven't even met yet. But for those of us who are still distracted by the background voice, who are still not able to catch a breath from everything that's thrown at them from every direction, we need to do every single thing in our power to be loud and clear to say, we are here. We see you. We see us. We keep us safe. We feed us. We show up for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And on the topic of youth, despite my mother might be disagreeing because of the silver linings that I have on the side. There is a saying in Arabic that says, youth is that of the soul. So, however young you feel, know that the experience you bring forth, the knowledge that you bring forth, has been through lifetimes before, and you're just remembering them. And so the most comfortable place I feel in after being close to water is a swing. And I don't care what child is going to scold me because I'm on that playground and saying on that swing instead of them. I'm taking my time on that swing. And they can call me a child all they want. And that's fine. But speaking of youth, we have a young king here. And his name, or one of his names, actually means young king. We have Amir coming through, and he has something to say for us. Welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to say that as a Black person,
sit right here.
I feel
Sit
like
right here.
for all the time that we've been fighting peacefully for equality and no one ever listened. So we never got very far, obviously, because we're still fighting for this today. And it shouldn't be taking this long just for people to acknowledge we're equal. That's it. That's all we're trying to say. It's all we're trying to do. And no one listens. So we're still in this and we're separated. And one day there's going to be a time where everyone's like, oh man, these people thought of this, but then we fired them. But they'll be gone because we all have our ideas and we're going to be able to create our own businesses and do what we want to do and make the world a better and safer place ourselves instead of trying to give our ideas to this person who will eventually probably try to take all the credit just to make the world a better place. Because in the end, we're all humans. We all live on the same planet. So there's nothing really different about us except the color of our skin. So there shouldn't really be as much problems as there are today.
And what do you feel we need to do about it?
We just need to acknowledge people. People need to be acknowledged for all the things that they did. Credit needs to be given so people can finally feel good about themselves. And the better people feel about themselves leads to more other people are going to feel stronger. And that helps businesses rise. It helps people really understand now that they have power and they can go far in life and that they can continue their dreams and do something to make the world a vision of the world that God wanted the world to be. Because it's not that world.
Right. Ashe. Ashe. Amen. Amen. He preached.
Yeah.
It was so interesting because he's been sitting here listening, kind of like in his game like this. And he keeps saying to me, wait, I thought you said you were just going to be talking to some people about cooking and farming or something. He was like, this is so much deeper of a conversation than cooking and farming. He was like, wait a second. He put his game down and he kind of leaned in. He was like, what did she just say? What did he just say? Oh my God. He was like, I'm trying to tell you, they are saying it on here. And I was like, I said, do you have anything you want to say? He said, yeah. He said, one, we ain't never going to stop fighting. Two, you got a lot of guns, daddy. And I was like, oh shit.
Amir.
Daddy say that, you know what I'm saying? Because, it's interesting when Queen Quet said, how guns and what you were saying, Johnny, how guns don't get up and kill nobody, Sure. So I've always been a long arm person. A handgun for me means I got to be super close to you. And I don't really want to be that close to nobody if I got to really do something. Right. But one of the things that I've shown all my kids is here, these are daddy's guns. You're not supposed to touch them. I don't want you to get inquisitive. As a matter of fact, let's go outside so you can hear what they sound like. Mm. And every last one of my boys have been like, oh, that's good. You just leave that over there, because the sound alone is enough to have you like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So teaching our youth as quickly as possible, giving them that internal compass that Queen was talking about. You know, where are our morals at, right? Are we teaching those things?
Right.
And if we're not teaching those things or having those conversations, the compass can go just like whoop, real
All the
quick.
way.
You know what I'm saying?
Going
And
the
guess
wrong
what?
direction.
The other thing he said right before I said, hey, you still want to talk? He said, Daddy, you know there's good and bad in all people, right? He said, you know that, right? You know? And so I think that's another conversation that we also have to keep in mind, Queen. Like when you were saying, we got to take the good and the bad.
Yeah, there's balance.
You know what I'm saying? We can't just separate the wheat from the chaff and be like, they was never together. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right, exactly.
we have to take the good with the bad, because that's what gets us to these next friggin' levels.
Right. Exactly.
I just want to jump in and say I'm totally here for orienting youth, but I think if you hear me and Jonny, we were youth with no orientation, and to just trust in, you know, one thing I can say about my mom and what she taught me is like, as long as we're getting 1% better with each generation, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
And so I think just extending that trust through prayer, through honoring earth, through honoring Great Spirit, it will come out, because you have examples like me and Jonny who had, there was no one there orienting us to do this work or showing us how to do it. There was nothing there. And I totally identify with Jonny, where it's like you grow up in a food apartheid, not understanding food, but then you end up in food work because you're so hungry. So I just feel like when you're on a certain side of poverty as a Black being, trust in Great Spirit, because Great Spirit will bring you there, even if there isn't a person.
I would just add to that too, Amber, because I think so much like makes you qualify. Like, am I young? Am I old? Am I this? Am I that? We have all these qualifiers, and I had said that, like, yeah, like my ancestors are plenty old, and like they speak to and through me. So I believe in that self-knowing wherever you are. And even in research, you know, we have like research a lot. There's something called autoethnography, which is just like what you know in yourself to be true. And then you go out and you seek that and you validate that with the world. So I just wanted to throw up that too, like that, like, because so much of the world teaches us we got to find an expert. We got to find someone else outside of us to guide us, to teach us, to show us, when there's so much inside that can be tapped into. And one more thing, because like, you know, I believe they say, and I know we've had so many religious contexts in here, but I guess, you know, it's something like it was a vehicle for conversation. But just one thing to add, yeah, like just calling it out too, like the calling outness of it is just like, we got to also just admit too that like as people in this world, like there is white supremacy. And it's like one of those things that's never hardly ever talked about. And it might be talked about more and more, but I name it in this context and in this space and at this family reunion to also bring up anti-Blackness, because that's the other side of it. Like, we understand white supremacy to some extent and to what levels it does to society. But what Jonny talked about earlier about just being Black and how that can, those triggers, that pain can impact you. And like you said, that dark cloud of self-doubt and reaching out for things that don't reach out and don't love you back. I just really want us to own anti-Blackness and how it lives in every system and on every being almost on this planet. Like, people say even dogs be racist. Like, I just say it to say, like, anti-Blackness is a real thing. And if my spirit, my energy is just to say, like, if you don't know about it, find where it lives in you, find where it's in your spirit, and uproot that shit. And see, anti-Blackness was like, am I okay to say that? But I said it, and I mean it, because I call it to power. So just find where that lives in you and eradicate it.
I mean, Dr. Lindsay, if I may add to that, man, that is so true, especially internally. I think as a community, that's something that we suffer from. But also, I think that a part of it for us is their understanding that that there are different genres of Black, that there isn't a mold or a model for how to be Black. I think acceptance in that, it has to be the collective understanding. As I said earlier, I keep saying is we often think of things individually, but at the end of the day, we're all collectively Black. No matter what genre of Black you are, whether you're Muslim, Christian, you have whatever social beliefs or life beliefs you may have. At the end of the day, you're a Black human being, and you're experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing, but from your own perspective. And I think when we talk about that anti-Blackness, we have to get that common understanding, so that way we're not ousting other genres of Black because it doesn't fit our mold of Black.
Thank you for that. We also have to acknowledge it in our midst. We also have to acknowledge people, Black people, who refuse to work with Black people, who refuse to acknowledge Black people, who refuse to see Black people, who refuse to see themselves as Black people. And it's all right, you know, you can identify however you want to identify, but don't impose that on other people. Like when you have, and this is something I personally had to deal with. As I said, I'm Nubian, from the Sudanese side of Nubia, and my country's name, Bilad as-Sudan in Arabic, literally translates to the land of the Blacks. And when we went to the streets for the protests, and when we went out to say Black Lives Matter, and we went to say this is a global Black Lives movement, whether it was the protest in December, the revolution, the protest turning into a revolution, or marching for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and every other name that we know and those we don't know. You have Sudanese parents who will look at you and say, why are you going on the streets? We're not Black. And be like, your country is named the land of the Black. Come back and tell me how we're not Black. But I digress again. But that's something we definitely need to acknowledge. And like that young king said, people just need to be acknowledged. They need to be seen. We need to see each other. We need to know we see each other. We need to know that we know. We do have a question here, and I think for all of us, and we'll wrap this up. Oh, sorry, Josh, I know you were on it. Okay, what's your goal for the next 10 years? Is failure an option? These are 3 questions. Mejdi, I will choose how you do it, answer all of it, answer a bit of it, however you feel like answering. I just want us to be mindful that we have about 15 minutes to wrap up. What's your goal for the next 10 years? Is failure an option? How confident are you that you're on the right path to achieve success?
I'll go first. My answer to the last part is failure is not an option. No, that's my answer to that. Giving you what my 10-year plan is, I would never do that because I'm very familiar with COINTELPRO. So just watch me do it. That's what I just like to say for my answer.
Whoa.
That snap. Who's next?
Oh, goodness.
I'm a little different on that, Queen. My thing is, I'll tell you my 10-year plan and then challenge you to come try and stop me. So, I say my 10-year plan is not feeding people, because I think feeding people can be great, but it's also a crutch. But my 10-year plan is acquiring as much land as I can so that people can grow their own food and barter. I don't know how else to put it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Do I really have to call out names?
Oh, I'll go. No, you don't have to. I'll go. 10-year plan. I don't make plans. I have made plans so many times in my life, and Great Spirit comes and tells me that I'm supposed to be doing a totally different thing. So I 1000% walk on the back and the surface of Mama Earth, and I just ask that she sometimes gives me a heads up of what's coming. But if I was to plan, like, what would I like to do? And I'm putting this out there so Mama Earth and the ancestors can hear it, is really, I would just like to get higher quality of produce to low income Black and Brown communities. And really, pre-COVID, I wanted to make food free. I still want to make food free, and I'm on that mission. That is like my number one goal. I would not like to be a farmer who is looking at land and computing it immediately to money. Like, I'm so over that. I'm so over that. I would really like to look at land and think of, be easy on myself, be easy on the land for the sake of feeding people. Let yield be health, not yield equate to money.
Thank you.
Well, for me, I think my goal is just going to continue to be a lot about education, and ensuring that that this generation that's current and the next generations that are moving forward have a place to put their feet on soil, on ancestral land, and actually learn the things that they want to learn. So far as farming goes, so far as cooking goes. So those are some of the many things that I want to do over the next 10 years on my farm. Now, if there's a question as if failure is an option, I done failed at a whole lot of stuff in my life. But guess what? I'm still standing. So failure is what it is. You take it the way it goes. You know what I'm saying? And am I on the right path? I'm alive, baby. I'm alive. I'm not in jail. You know what I'm saying? Have I seen the inside of one? Yeah. But I'm alive. I'm not in jail. You know what I'm saying? I got 7 beautiful children that are everything from Dr. Chanel Rayford right now all the way down to the little one that you just heard, Evan Amir. So those things in my life, I have always heard would never happen. Not for a Black man. And I have some of the most amazing circle of friends because I'm on here with y'all right now. So, am I on the right path? I'm here. I'm here.
I just put in the chat. So this song just like popped in my head, and it's Use Me by Bill Withers, who's an ancestor now. Shout out to Bill Withers. But I can just hear him in that song. If you've never heard it, you guys should go listen to it. And he's just like pleading, like, use me, use me. And that's my invocation. That's my call to spirit for these next 10 years. Use me, baby, use me. You formed me, you made me, you know better than I, my possibilities and my potential. And you can see further than I. So I just say to spirit, like, come on, use me, use me, use me. Failure, whatever, like just like Chef Farmer just explained to us, it may come, it should come, right? If you're not failing, then are you even trying? That's what they say. And then last part, failing, the next look like, yeah, I just go to that. I just call on spirit just to use me in the planning of it all. I know when it's all counted and when it's all measured at the end, I'm going to stand on the side of people that tried, right? And that's good enough for me. I know I tried. I'm going to keep trying. And if spirit's listening, like I said, use me. Let's get it. Let's do it.
Sister Dima, I just want to say to everyone who stayed with us today, you will have what you say. You will have what you say. And I have looked at some of the comments today, and some that stood out was the fact that we are all standing together. We are all united. we are all saying that this circle that we've had everyone join us in today will not be broken, that we are healing people, we will have what we say. So today we say to the power, the blessing, that Black history is still in the making, because we are the embodiment of our ancestors, and we will birth the next generation that accomplishes all that we are taking a stand to do, to touch the earth and let Mother Earth touch us, heal us, nurture us. May the waters flow, the water to bring we, the water going to take we back. And so this is our journey together, united. We are shouting, united. We are beating the head of the drum, united. That drum sits in an African circle around the world, in which all the children of Mother Africa are joined together today, and we will not be broken. And to this we say, Harambe, 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 and Ashe, Ashe, Asheo.
Just taking a moment to let it all in. I am shaking here. I'm tuning in from Egypt, for if I hadn't mentioned that earlier, but I am feeling this energy coming from every single place you wonderful souls are sitting and sharing this with us. From everywhere people are tuning in from Canada to Switzerland to Paris to USA to Kenya. I think I saw Nigeria in there as well. Tomorrow, first of all, with that prayer, with that reminder, I am now reminded that tonight's a full moon, and what power to have that and to be here sharing this with you under the full moon. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow is the 28th of February and is the so-called end of the so-called Black History Month. But if there was one message that came out so loud through this celebration, is that Black history is very much in the making, is that we are Black history, is that we are Black history makers, is that we are Black history in the making, is that we're Black future makers. And so I urge you, each and every one of you tuning in, let's not wait till next February. If you don't, that's great. If you need a reminder, come through. Follow each and every one of these amazing human beings who are not just talking, who in fact had to carve time. Each and every one of them had a plan to be doing something for the past 2 hours. And not just something, important things, doing active things, which they put to the side and chose to be here with us. Not just because we asked them to say that we want to celebrate them. This wasn't about them. This was because we asked that they help once again inspire our family the way they have inspired us before in the Juneteenth broadcast for the Hunger for Justice series that A Growing Culture had started last year. And if you haven't seen that broadcast, that is 6 hours of pure power. However you want to treat yourself, those 6 hours are your self-love. Those 6 hours are your self-care in so many ways. So we had to, when we were looking for quotes, we were like, there were long quotes, there were like 17 tabs open just to find something to pick from. So please remember that Black history is very much in the making. And if I could ask you for one thing before we part ways today, just for today, because we'll be back and we'll be back for more. We'll be back for a lot. So if you're not following A Growing Culture, follow A Growing Culture on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Yes, shameless plugging, but you know what? That's also for you. Here is my favor to ask you. Do yourself a favor. If you really truly believe that Black history is in the making, if you really truly believe and understand and comprehend and feel what these wonderful humans just shared with each and every one of us and the love they poured into our beings, ask more questions. Find out what HR 40 is. Find out what that bill is. And if you already know what that bill is, and I'm not going to share it here, but if you already know what that bill is, then find out why not more of us know about it. Find out why it's not on the news. Find out why it's not on social media. Find out why it's not being mentioned in a month celebrating Black History Month. Find out what you can do, you personally. You can do plenty. Find out what you personally can do to bring HR 40 to life. And when you find it out, whatever it is you find it out, come back to this post right here, whether you're watching it on Facebook, whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're watching it on Twitter. Post what you found. Let's share it with others. Knowledge is power. And we need to learn to share our power because we are one. So if knowledge is power and you have it, share yours. Please, please, please find out what HR 40 is. And then ask more questions. And then when you know the questions you're asking, don't stop until you get your answers. And make sure these answers aren't words. Make sure it's live, it's active, it's tangible, like Black history itself. I could go on a proper rant right now, but I will contain myself because it is 10:17 in Egypt. And I have taken plenty of your time, and I'm very, very grateful to every minute you have spent with us and the truths that you have shared. We have one last question, and it's a very important question. And Monica has been very engaged throughout. So I will put it up there. And if someone wants to take that.
Well, I'll take part of that. I'm sure the others will take the rest. In terms of repatriating land, I'm not exactly fully clear on how Monica is defining that, because more often not, when the term repatriation is mentioned, you are talking about people leaving a place, going to another place and occupying land there. Now, if you mean reclaiming land, that's the part I can address, because every year, almost by the month, there is land that's put up for auction in many places and spaces that were once, quote, Black townships, African communities. Have your funds in place. Pay attention. When you see those signs, that is the sign to retake the land. Go in and get it. But once you have it, it has to be maintained. It's Mother Earth, so it's a living being. It has to be nurtured. It has to be fed. It has to have water and sunlight. It has to have other life breath working with it. Otherwise, it's just there. It's not something you can feed yourself from. So you want viable land if you are talking about reclaiming land or even repatriating to a land. You don't want that which they've poisoned to give to you, because that has happened in the history of repatriation as well, especially in the Gullah Geechee diaspora. So I know here in the Gullah Geechee Nation, we have the Gullah Geechee Land and Legacy Fund. It's not only to assist people who are maintaining ownership of land, and sometimes they need help with keeping the buildings restored or with even paying the taxes to maintain it. It's also about reclaiming land. And so that if any Gullah Geechees of the diaspora intend to repatriate back home, we still gonna be ya. We been ya, and we ain't going nowhere tall. So I can tell you that's what we do, how we do it, and just wanted to address it in terms of the terminology, because I'm not sure exactly which way you mean the word repatriation, but I do know we stand for holding Punwe land in the Gullah Geechee Nation.
Oh, no, you go first, Amber. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is my 2 cents, and the way that I'm going about it is through Indigenous people. What I'm hoping is with these contracts that are about to free up with ranchers on Indigenous land, that there is an Indigenous and Black coming together where they extend land to those of us who are Black and are a really weird, unknown tribe of America. I'm really hoping to flag down more Indigenous people to partner with Black farmers so that we can become a circle of our own.
The only thing I was going to add is whenever I hear about reparations and Black folks getting land, and I just want everybody to understand that it's work and that you're signing up for work. And I'm not talking about anybody that's on, in the thing. Like when I came home to this land, know that I had to get this land right. Now the land it had been fallow for like 20 years. So getting land for land's sake and not doing nothing with it, do not do that, Black people. Do not. If you're going to get land because you know how to get it, ensure that you have or are thinking about Black people that really want to be on land. Because there's also this thing of where we think there are people that just start grabbing up stuff to be grabbing up stuff, but then don't do nothing with it. Like if you get 100 acres, that 100 acre needs to go into pine trees, blueberries. It needs to go into something. It can't just sit there, because that's also how a lot of us have lost land in the past. And it'd be great for them to give it to you, right? And then all of a sudden say, well, they ain't doing nothing with it. Might as well take it back, right? So make sure that when you're talking about reparations and it comes to land, that you are actually thinking about actively working. Like Queen said, you got to feed the land. You know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Lindsay was saying, like, you got to think about all that George Washington Carver put into place with the Jessup wagon. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that goes into going to land. And I just want everybody to understand that when you're thinking about that, that's the way you think about it, that A, it's work, B, I'm in it to win it. And that remembering this one last fact, and I've said this so many times, land is power. Land is power. Once you put your hands in that soil, you start getting that soil therapy. Once you own that, remember, land is power. And you want us to be able to rise up with that power, not be destroyed by that power.
I would just say with that, sorry, Dima, I didn't know if you, okay. I would just add to that, and I think it was something that was said maybe in the chat earlier. Malcolm X said that all revolution happens over land. There is no revolution that does not happen over land. And I would add to that all revolutions come in red, right? There's bloodshed behind like acquiring land and taking land and holding land. And I like to look a lot to like models that happened in the past. Booker T. Washington said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, you can go back to like those older blueprints. And so there was the movement of the Republic of New Africa that happened in the late 60s, early 70s, where they claimed the southern states of Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana as being our ancestral home as Black people in America. And they wanted that land to be ceded and for African American people to have dominion over that land. And I would just point people to that movement just to understand the ideology behind that. And then also to center a region, which is the South, specifically the Black Belt South, which is the counties that I live in. If you don't know about the Black Belt, it used to be called the Black Belt. It's a span that extends across the South. It used to be called the Black Belt because of the soil being black. The soil was so black and fertile, but then it was called the Black Belt because it's where plantation agriculture really, really took off and grew after the native indigenous people were moved from their lands through like trails of tears and other things. So it is the Black Belt that's home to so much of the economic problems that we see today, and also which is the ancestral home to so many Black people that were victims of internal exile through the Great Migration, which just happened to a lot of our people. So I think it's important that we reclaim like grandmama and big mama and granddaddy and Uncle Buck, like they had homes in the South that were taken, that were sold, that were they were pushed out, push factors. So I think it's really important for us to revisit the South. And, you know, politically, we look at what Stacey Abrams and so many other people were able to do to Georgia. That's because there's been a reshaping and a removement of energy, and people have been called to some sort of home. So I put up the Republic of New Africa to reinstate how many, like as Amber reminded us, how many of our mothers and our grandfathers and grandmothers are in this Southern soil. Their bones and their bodies are here. And if you don't necessarily have that land connection, that's fine. But I hold that up to say the South was home for us. And in the future, I think we should do whatever we can to get much more of that power back.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this. Thank you all. I don't know if Chef Jonny has something to say, but I'm mindful that Chef Farmer Matthew has to leave us. So if you have any last words before you you leave.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to. Me?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad. I was going to say I had put something in there and left your name off, Jonny, and I wanted to say, be easy, man. Reach out to me, veteran to veteran. Let's catch up and talk. All my sisters, the patriarch thing is just completely shut down. This matriarchal society that I am stepping into, I bring it all the way in. I appreciate being part of, and I hope that my roots continue to talk to your roots so that we can keep building this thing right here that we're doing. I have to run to a volleyball game for one of my children, and it goes back to the kids again. But everybody that has been able to come into this from all over the world, anything that we can do to connect, whether it be seeds or whatever, let's figure it out. And we have our beautiful sister Dima here that has been able to put all those pixels together. So continue to connect us. And I have nothing but as much positive vibes and love. And as Queen Quet says, let's all get underneath that tree and hug each other. All right. Everybody.
Peace and blessings. And y'all better win that game because Queen Quet used to be the leader on the volleyball team and we won. So y'all better go win that game now.
Boom, boom. I'll let y'all know. I'll let y'all know.
Yes.
How wonderful. See, this is the love. This is Black history in the making. This is Black love reminding us of who we are, where we are, why we're here. Jonny, you had something to say.
Yeah, the only thing that I was just thinking about what Dr. Lindsay said about having that calling to coming home, and also about all revolutions ending in red. There's this thing that people say is everybody want to go heaven, nobody want to go today. And that's the thing, you know, we got to be willing and ready at all times to, to like acquire the land. Without it, there is no survival for us in sight. We have to get the land. So I appreciate you, Dr. Lindsay, for sharing that for sure.
Oh, you're muted. Legend. Yes, there you go.
Sorry, I was speaking to you. I was saying, I wrote that down, Chef Jonny. I'm over here like halfway in my notes. I'm like, yeah, everybody wants to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to go today.
The other way that's said to both of you is everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die.
Family, you have filled me personally with so much love and so much gratitude, and you have blessed my evening here. And I will be stepping out and giving thanks to each and every one of you. And I want to thank you and continue to honor you and celebrate you, and know that I will be reaching out again and again and again, because our work is just getting started. Family tuning in, thank you for your energy, for your comments, for your questions, for being here, for staying well over the time. This is a sign, this is further acknowledgement of you seeing what this is really all about, and that we see us again. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll have more. Yes. We will be signing off here. Once again, I thank all the Growing Culture family who have worked and still are working behind the scenes to make this happen. And I will leave it to Josh to end this broadcast as we wave to you and leave you in peace and great blessings. Thank you all.
Peace, love, and power, everyone.
Bye, y'all.